Sometimes people surprise you. For example, I lettered in varsity baseball when I was in high school. I'm waiting for it, the surprise, for another. Some of you may already know this, but I was involved in forensics and mock trial and Model United Nations. And for over 20 plus years, I have been an educator in some way, shape, or form. I've taught English, I've substituted, I am a librarian. I do these story times, right? Yet I have speech impediments. Yeah. Some of my friends who have known me for a long time may have forgotten these things. But I sounded like a cross between Elmer Fudd and Porky Pig. I stuttered. I had a lisp. I juxtaposed certain letters, most notably F's and R's. And so if I asked for a sucker, it came out with the F instead of the S. So we called them lollipops in our home. Although when younger, my sister delighted in asking me to ask for a sucker if we went out. Just because it was entertaining to watch the adults' faces, to watch me as a little kid asking for a sucker. That's not quite what I said. And it's cute when you're little. It's cute when you're little and you're struggling, and things come out differently. I couldn't even say my name as Rachel, instead of Rachel. I hated my name. Sometimes I would lie and say, my name's Beth, which is my sister's name. Hi, I'm Beth. It was frustrating. It was annoyingly frustrating and embarrassing. And I hated a huge part of myself for struggling and feeling wrong. Why was I wrong? I did speech therapy all of elementary school, and I did have tremendous adult support, and my friends too were good. But sometimes when you say things backwards, or you struggle, or you stutter, there's someone who wants to finish it, or there is one person who can't help but laugh because it sounds funny. And other people would join in too. And you have choices when you're the person who is the object of that. I recognized why it sounded funny. I knew that it wasn't necessarily laughing at me, but it was hard, especially because my father wasn't really understanding. He felt like if I worked harder, if I did something, that there was a missing piece in me. And it hurt. It very much hurt. And I was very much a perfectionist, especially when I was younger, because if I couldn't control this, I couldn't control the words coming out of my mouth, I was going to control other things within my world. So if I couldn't write my name right on a paper, I would crumple it up and throw it away and do it again and again and again, even if my name was in pencil, because you could see the erasure marks. It is a frustrating thing when you try to speak and the words don't come. Sometimes people don't surprise you. And it's not because they're cruel. Maybe some. But it's human nature, I think, too, to shrug that off or to maybe lack understanding of what it is that is happening for another person. So when I was entering 4th grade, my mom said to me, you need to make a friend. You need to make sure that this person feels welcome. And I was resentful. How many times have you been told you need to be nice to so-and-so? You need to be welcoming. And I thought to myself, I don't need to do anything. But I didn't say that because that's my mom. And it turns out that her co-teacher, my mom's a preschool teacher, her co-teacher, Lynn, her son was going to be starting school at my elementary school. My mom wanted to make sure that he was welcome. Forced friendships. And it turns out my mom had nothing to worry about because Will, the new kid in school, didn't need my help. Will was everybody's friend immediately. And it's not that he was the typical popular kid. Quite the opposite, really. He endeared himself to people because he was funny without being cruel or using other people. He was kind, generous, thoughtful. I look back at Will now and I think in some ways he was sort of an introvert as well. He loved reading and reflecting on things. I wanted to be a veterinarian, and at the time Will wanted to be a forest ranger. He deeply cared about the environment. And one of the things I remember most about him, which is so silly, is he always wore a baseball cap. And that was the one thing he would get really frustrated by, is if someone touched his baseball cap, because he didn't comb his hair in the morning. Just put the cap on. But Will had a plethora of friends, and I am very grateful that I counted amongst them. So my mom forcing me to have a friendship with Will wasn't really a forced thing. Will has a younger sister, Katie, and she is just as wonderful. And watching how kind he was to his kid sister was something too. And he surprised me. Unlike a lot of the other people I grew up with, who I guess never really thought too much about my speech impediments, I always felt that Will understood very empathically what that meant. If I messed up my words, if I got the letters screwed up, if I created new words because I was speaking too quickly, or they got stuck in my mouth, he didn't laugh with other people. And it wasn't because he was trying not to. It's because he genuinely didn't find it funny. That was what stood out to me about Will, is he genuinely seemed to feel what other people felt. So fast forward to 6th grade, and it's now 1985, 1986. And in our school district, in Santa Ana Unified, oral expression or speech is a required class. Speech. I was technically done with needing speech therapy, but it was a daily struggle, and it still is. As I've taught, you can ask some of my students, they will tell you that I frequently make gaffes when it comes to speaking, and it still happens. And I was nervous. I was very, very nervous. We had to prepare an informational speech and then impromptu, which is you have 2 minutes, here's your topic, no notes, create a speech, and then present it. And I was like, I don't know how to do this. And my mom had asked me, like, are you okay with this? And I'm like, yeah, sure, I'm great. But, I didn't want to tell my mom, I feel like I'm going to die inside. My sister had already warned me about this, and she hated it. I mean, she said it was horrible. And I was nervous. And the first person I thought of was Will. And I talked to him about it, and he said, I'll be with you. Now, lest you think this is just in-class speech, it was our entire school district, meaning all the schools met together, and you had to present in front of them, families, all these other different schools. I grew up in a very large school district. It's currently the 16th largest school district in California, and there was a lot of people. And so it was one thing if I had the courage to stand in front of my class. It's entirely different to stand in front of all of these people. So I practiced my introductory speech, the one I knew ahead of time, so many times. I still know it today. But the impromptu, there was no preparing for it except practicing in class. And I was given a sheet of paper and it was about cheating. I didn't know anything about cheating. What do I talk about? And so I reflected on a conversation my sister and her friends had about different ways people were cheating in their school. She was in high school. And I just came out and I just started babbling about that. Babble, babble, babble. Just how people cheat. I ended up winning third place. Do you know what that does to somebody with speech impediments? To like win out of the gates? And I wasn't even thinking of winning. I was thinking of surviving, right? And I come out and I'm just scanning the whole time the crowd for Will. And I see him way in the back. And that's my beacon. That's my hope. And my mom was there, always supportive. But I needed a person who was my age, who understood my fear. And he was there. Now, of course, that day wasn't going to go through unscathed. I mean, I went to the bathroom. I tucked my little skirt into my white tights and walked out. And people laugh because sometimes they don't surprise you. And Will was there and noticed right away and helped fix me. 6-year-old boy helping his friend fix her skirt. Because, you know, she's not used to wearing skirts. But I got through the day. And I still have, out of all of the things I've chosen to get rid of, that little tiny plaque for third place. And I kept it because for me it was an accomplishment of not just being able to speak, but the culmination of what it means to have someone who loves you and supports you. To me, is as much Will's as it is mine. For I believe that without Will's support, I would never have been able to do what I did. Including him helping me fix my skirt that was tucked in my underwear. Because even if it wasn't for the speech impediments, I still found a way to embarrass myself. After 8th grade, like a lot of my other friends, Will ended up moving away. It was not personal. I just said it was like a lot of my other friends. It's just stuff happens. And like with my other friends, a little piece of me left too. But I've always been grateful he was a part of my life. Fast forward into high school. And Papa G, sometimes called him Papa Smurf. He was our biology teacher in junior high. And when I went to high school, he transferred there, was our driver's ed teacher, but he also was the assistant coach to varsity baseball. And he asked me to keep stats. Now, I'd known Mr. Guerrero since I was in elementary school because he had been my sister's teacher too. And I loved him. Just a wonderful spirit. And I said, fine. I like baseball. I mean, I went to Will and Joe and a lot of the other friends of mine, their little league games. So I did it. I only got beamed once with a ball because they all told me to look up when a ball's in play. All it took was me not looking up one time for the ball to smack me in the head. But I knew all the guys that were on the team. And some of them, one of them I went to preschool with. Some of them I grew up with. And they're good people. And I enjoyed baseball. So I learned how to keep the stats. And I didn't go to the banquet junior year because I thought, I just keep the stats, And finally, senior year comes around and Coach Guerrero calls my mom and says, Rachel needs to come to this. We need Rachel to come to this. I told Mom, I don't want to go to this. Come on. I didn't really play baseball. I just, I kept the stats. Yeah, I didn't do training with these guys. And Mom's like, why don't you take someone with you? Because I'm allowed to take someone with me. And eerily, we both thought of Will. Now, I had not seen Will since 8th grade. But we both thought of Will. And he didn't live too far away. And so I called Will up and I said, all right, I need you again. And it's high school, so I didn't want him to think any kind of weird dynamic thing was happening. But leave it to Will to know that that wasn't the case. He's like, all right, that sounds good. That sounds good. I'll pick you up. And he came in his Bronco, which was wicked cool, which was a wicked cool car. And we went. And he got to see, because he knew Mr. Guerrero from being his teacher and a lot of the guys on the team he knew. And they called my name to come get the letter. And Will kind of shuffles his elbow at me, and I just I try not to laugh, and he goes, go on, All-Star. But it was good. I felt like I was a kid again. And I was able to get up there and go get it. And seeing my friend after so many years, I remember that sometimes people don't surprise you. He still had the same heart and the same kindness and the same empathy. He knew why I felt embarrassed to go up there. I mean, I am not an athlete. And the guys there were great. But he knew I felt kind of foolish. But he went. I think the most important thing to know is that sometimes people do surprise you. They're not what you expect. They can be the most kindest souls on earth. And of course, if you close yourself off to that, you may never know the kindness that you have in store for you. And I am grateful. I am ever grateful that the door opened at the right time to let someone in who would show me that despite the fact words got stuck, I was going to be able to let them out one day. And he showed me the path I was going to take. And for that, I am eternally grateful to my friend.